Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super Fantify. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the finale of Demon Lord 2099. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So I'm labeling this as a finale, but obviously the titling for this could always change later on, retroactive. Like I always go back and be like, oh, this is a season 1 finale. But, for now, I'll label it as a finale. So I'll talk about that more at the end of it. But we're immediately picking up where the last episode left off. And obviously there's kind of some tension down below in the street, and Kinohara is asking Graham if he's going to do anything. He's like, why would I get involved? She's like, well, you're a hero. And we never got clarification on why Graham actually came here, and I don't know if it has anything to do with Meldia necessarily. I don't know if he knew that was going to happen. I was also wondering, could it be that the church, that new church that Mag belongs to, like if there was some connection to Graham. But then I also thought about as well, to be fair, this city has a lot of connection to Graham in general because of everything going on with the three great houses, because they're all descendants of the guy he gave the three regalias to. Like his three sons each became, the ancestor to the three great houses respectively. So it's like, so he probably feels a certain, but it's like, yeah, it's kind of interesting because he's just been here chilling. So maybe he found, because he showed up after Vital did. So maybe it's a combination of, well, Vital decided to come here. Maybe, it could also be related to the church thing. Like him and Kinohara could have been doing their own investigating, and it led them to stay here. But like Graham decided, well, Vital's here, so I'm going to wait on the sidelines and see how this plays out, But either way, Vital is duking it out with Meldia. We hear a little bit, world building wise. She's one of the 6 great gods. She's a god of joy and misfortune, goddess of joy and misfortune, which obviously plays a heavy part into the battle. I think it's interesting because she can basically alter causality, specifically fate, and basically utilize that kind of subconsciously while also doing it consciously as well. Because I thought that was so interesting. Like at one point, Vital tries an attack, but then like a piece of rubble hits his hand and it misses the goddess. But he immediately explains afterwards it's because she's able to bring misfortune upon her opponents so that their attacks miss, but she herself has the fortune of her defense get boosted and her attacks always hit. So for example, like Vital explains it later on, physical attacks and even magic attacks that use a least amount of aether, those attacks can immediately be like either blocked, they immediately are nullified, and even like large scale aether attacks can be completely nullified. But he's like, basically, I forgot how he broke it down, but basically attacks from a physical attack happen automatically, but other attacks, like more magical attacks, she has to purposely dodge on her own, which for Vital is like, the fact is you have to dodge some of my attacks proves to me some of my attacks, if they do land, will do damage to you. So it is this interesting thing where we have a goddess versus the demon lord, and obviously I guess they've never crossed paths before, but obviously she would know his reputation and talks about how far he's fallen. He's like, look at you, you're a goddess. Why are you even here in this plane of existence, possessing the body of essentially a high school girl? Like, what are you doing? And it's actually kind of sad when we break down everything and we find out. I would have never guessed the reasoning behind the whole I'm sorry. I thought it had something to do with Hizuki. It has nothing to do with Hizuki necessarily. It's about Graham. Meldia has a lot of regret when it comes to Graham because we find out, is in love with him, as Vital kind of points out. And I guess she never put it together until Vital said something. But essentially, she thought she was giving Graham a blessing when she gave him essentially his immortality, stopped his aging. But obviously life did not go great after that. Obviously he got banished by the people he tried to protect and stuff. He got ousted and he basically kind of wandered off on his own. And she's been holding on to that regret ever since. And it's like, I thought I was trying to make you happy. And for her, she immediately assumed Graham must hate me. She's never actually asked him because she's like, I want to know how he feels. And it's like, Vital's like, it's kind of, you must not really know him that well if you because you're too scared to ask him yourself. It's like, fine, as his greatest adversary, I will tell you, But the fact is, it's like, at the end of the day, he specifically says, Graham would hate who you've become right now. The fact is, you possessing the body of a girl, like a innocent person, he would not like that, and that would be the fact, and that is the case. So that in itself kind of incited like Meldia to kind of go on the offensive. I mean, she was already like he was still standing his own because his regeneration is there to some extent. She was able to nullify it when she sliced off his arm. Meanwhile, while this is all going down, Machina is fighting that woman from last episode. So it's like, okay, so she didn't die from that attack. She's still around. And I think her name was like Anji, essentially. And because Machina was like, you look so familiar. But she was like, I'm Anji. What's your name? Machina. Yeah, I don't know you. And they kind of duke it out. And I love that, like, Machina sadly gets impaled, but she's like, right, do you know the thing about Immortal's blood? It's it can disappear and turn into aether if it leaves our body and just wanders around for a bit. It will just automatically disappear unless we want it to. And then, she does the blood bomb thing, which I was like, oh, so I guess all Immortals can do that. I assumed that was Marcus's technique, but then she was like, I can't believe I had to use that asshole's technique. I'm like, okay, so it is Marcus's technique, but if you know the spell, if you know how to utilize it, I guess that was kind of his specialty, meaning anyone could do it if, I guess maybe Machina's good enough, like, we don't know the scaling. I mean, obviously, Vetol's on a different scaling, but I'm like, we don't know what the stat points are. Like, maybe Machina's better at magic than Vetol is. I'd assume that's not the case, but, So maybe she has like a variety of, like, maybe she can easily learn other people's magic, and Vetol's magic's just a magic. Who knows? Because I'm sure, like, could Vetol use Marcus's magic, or is that just like a thing of like, is Machina kind of got a little bit of a shotting gun where it's like she can just learn magic? Obviously, she only used it because she was desperate in this situation, but it's like, I had to use that bastard's magic. Blew off Anji's head, but the moment it reformed, it's revealed that she's one of the Dark Peers, May, and her memory's been wiped, and she gets ready for a powerful attack. But before it could, do its thing, Mag shows up and collects her because it's like, oh, you're a failure, piece of junk. But the higher ups at the church take an interest in you. It's like, I've already kind of screwed the pooch in this whole situation. So if I come back without you too, so she teleports away. It's just like, oh, you dick. So obviously, once again, we got introduced to the church last episode. So it's like, right, kind of like, I guess maybe overarching threat in the entire story. Marcus was the main antagonist for the Akihabara arc. I mean, for the Shinjuku arc. So I guess like they're maybe like the overarching entire series antagonist, kind of like an Ouroboros in a lot of way. Once again, going back to my Trail/Kaseki references. There's kind of a good and bad to that, because it's sad seeing like one of your former allies is in that situation, but there's also the benefit of, hey, she's out there, meaning if we can find a way to her, we can potentially save her. So it's a double-edged sword revelation in that regard. But either way, getting back to it, Mag had already set up some countermeasures just in case things come down to it. So I don't know what it was exactly. I don't know if she kind of there's like this giant orb that forms around the goddess Meldia and ends up breaking, and her dress goes from white to red. Her eyes are now pure red too. Because the entire fight, like, Hizuku periodically throughout it is trying to like break free. And I love specifically during those sections, Vetol calls her by the right name, but the moment like the battle ends, he goes back to calling her the wrong name again. Because I think for him, it's like, right, he likes the back and forth they have. So it's kind of like, no, I'm gonna get your name wrong in the moments where it doesn't matter, but I'll get your name right in the moments where it does matter the most, But either way, I love that situation where he like gets flung back by an attack, and Graham creates a barrier to stop him, and he slams against it, and he's like, well, couldn't you help me out a little differently? He's like, I literally just died once there because you didn't help me out in the right way. He's like, oh, like, be fine, you're going to regenerate, right? He's like, do you want me to step in? But he's like, no, this is my friend over there, and I promised her I'd save her, but I can't get to her on my own. So this will be the one time I say this, back me up, Graham. So he's stepping in, and I even love, he's like, oh, so what's the situation you're dealing with? He's like, oh, I'm dealing with a goddess who's basically, it's not, I'm not phrasing it right, but essentially it's like, oh, here's some goddess who is in love with someone, and she's just terrible, like, at expressing it. She also brought up something I thought was interesting too, where she said, like, she hates men with dark hair. She's like, oh, the great men that she really likes are the ones with blonde hair, which begs the question. It's like, did you always like blondes, or is Graham the reason why you like blondes? Chicken or the egg type of situation. I'm assuming it's the former. I'm sure Graham's the reason why you like blondes, but you probably only like a very specific blonde. But either way, Graham backs him up because Vetol changed his sword into a different form, and Graham is just like blocking attacks. And I even love that last point where he just like grabs Vetol and like fastball specialed him straight into stabbing her. And I don't know if that means, like, I guess that's kind of maybe implying like whatever remnants of the goddess found the because the whole point is the goddess was kind of summoned to this plane of existence. I don't think she's dead, but I think she's just the little bit of her that was here in this plane of existence is no longer there. But maybe because of the ending of the episode, there's a small spark of her still inside Hazuki. But for the most part, Hazuki's back. And I don't think the goddess is dead. But either way, Vetol lets her know, like, right, you should know better than anyone. Graham does not hate you. Because she's like, right, so he wasn't miserable? It's like, no, he wasn't. Like, you should know better than anyone else. He can never, like, hate you for what you've done for him because he's the hero. And she's like, thank you for telling me that, Vetol. And like, it's what she needed to hear. She just been holding on to that regret. That's why she was, trying in the most clumsy way possible, trying to avoid him because she was afraid of hearing the answer. Because once again, you can think something yourself 1,000 times over, but it hits even harder when you hear it from someone. So the thought that he might hate her hurt, but she was more scared of hearing it from him herself. So... But luckily, Hazuki was saved, but the city's about to implode because both sides are fighting. It's like, it's like those higher up people, those nobles and stuff like that are the problem, whereas like everyone else is like, no, it's the kind of the class divide. And so obviously, Hazuki presents herself to the city. And, because obviously they had the whole back and forth about like, right, Trait's the one that killed Cornea. This is all her fault. But then she sets the record straight by being like, it wasn't Trait. Someone disguises her and says the real Trait is dead. Like, I was hoping like, right, the real her was somewhere else. But it's like, no, sadly, she's going to. Because most likely the explosion that killed Mag's body, she was there too. So the device she was on is probably blew up too. So it's like, I was just hopeful last episode being like, maybe there's some way you could put her in a new body. Nope, she's gone. So Hazuki announces herself, and it's like, because she has the 3 regalia, regardless of how people feel about her, she has rightful authority over the city as king. And as king, she makes a declaration that basically essentially dissolves the 3 great houses. Like, this power, like this, Akihabara will never have another king, and that basically the Council of Akihabara will be the governing body going forward. And these people are complaining like, those, why would we listen to them? And she's like, go off, do whatever you want to, Baka, So kind of made her declaration. And it was kind of live streamed all over the place. So it's kind of like, yeah, Akihabara is having a different structure. Obviously, they go into the place where everything, the vault, and they find exactly what they want. And I also love that at the same time, Hazuki's like, oh, wow, you really were the Demon Lord Vetol and you were Machina. Holy crap, I didn't know that's who you guys really were. But they found the book. They found out that, what was the person's name? It's a dragon person that they know. Once again, I think one of the Dark Peers, and also May. It's like, well, we know they're alive, so that's good. And then we find out Hazuki has transferred to Takahashi's school because now they're back in Shinjuku, which makes all the sense of the world. The only thing keeping Hazuki in Akihabara, which I thought was interesting. Like, obviously the guy that served Cornea was happy, but you also saw like when Hazuki had made her declaration, we saw the maid and butler like clap hands, because I guess I thought they abandoned her, but maybe it was more so Hazuki's decision to send them away or something like that. And maybe they were happy of her to finally be free of everything. Like, that's what I'm saying. Because I'm so confused by that. Because like they made it seem like they left her behind, but maybe that was more her decision as the Reynard family head, being the only person left. She was able to kind of do that. But yeah, like her only thing keeping her there with the 3 great houses, her responsibility to kind of keep the house going, even having fallen from grace. But also like the only other 2 people who mattered to her, who were the other 2 heads of the houses, Trait and Cornea are both going. So there's literally nothing. It's not like she got particularly, the only people she got close to at the school have now come back to Shinjuku. So it's like, I've got no reason to stay here anymore. I'm going to go and be with my friends, which I'm like, hey, I don't know if this is how it works in the light novel, but I guess she's going to be kicking it with them, like going forward into the story, which I hope that is the case. So I thought that was beautiful. And, you know, it's like, hey, because I was really hoping she'd stick around, because I was like, oh, like when this all said and done, I figured she was going to leave the city, but it's kind of like, nah, like this city's not going to have a person anymore. And also, like, I'm not going to stick around. The city doesn't really like you anyway, and you have no special attachments now that it's all kind of, the former structure is no longer there. So it's like, yeah, that city's going to work a little differently and go through things differently. But yeah, but also like Machina and Vettel got to enjoy, like, hey, like this is what it's like to spend a little time at school, and it was fun. Sadly, your teacher ended up being an evil sociopath from an evil organization. So, but yeah, it ends with them playing games again, and now it's like, you know, Vettel lost and everything, and, you know, Hizuki thanking him for everything. But there was a little bit of like the goddess is also there. That's what I was saying earlier. Like, I don't know if there's still a small fragment of her still there, or is that the little bit of her left before she vanished saying thank you. But also Hizuki was thankful. So, but I love that it's like, you know, Makina's like, I shall avenge you, my lord, and get her revenge, playing against Hizuki, and then Vettel ends up going up against Takahashi for last place. It also plays into this thing I forgot about, that Vettel during his fight with Meldio was like, oh yeah, of course, every boss has like a second phase or something. It's like, shut up, Vettel. So it's kind of nice. And obviously we see like a ad for his like live stream at the very end. So kind of a nice way to end things off. It is obviously the episode just, the finale aired today. Today's the 29th, I believe. Yes. Today. So I looked it up. There has been no news on whether or not there's going to be a second season. We'll see if that ends up changing. Hence why I was like season finale type of thing at the beginning. Kind of had to do that quite a bit with a few animes recently, but I looked into it, and I talked about it previously that the light novel is still ongoing. Maybe I could have sworn it was only 3 volumes, and I'm basing this all on Wikipedia, so take this with a grain of salt. Some of that could be wrong. I thought there was only 3 volumes. I looked it up today, and it's 5 volumes. I was like, huh. The volume 4 and 5 only came out like the past 2 months. Like volume 4 came out in October, and November is when volume 5 came out. But either way, so based on the titles of the volumes of the light novels, it seems like this first season has covered the first 2 volumes. So there's still 3 more volumes that can be adapted. So, because I was worried, I was like, well, if there's only like 3 volumes out, then it might be kind of like a Yakuza Fiance situation, where it's like, in that case, there wasn't there hasn't been enough of the manga left to adapt. There's not enough to make like a full season, like a 12 episode anime season. That was my understanding. So that's still kind of up in the air whether or not they'll get more of that. This, at the very least, is like, well, if we got 2 volumes out of a 12 episode season, but it also depends on how quickly they burn through the volumes, and also how long are the volumes. Because based on what we saw, like, it seemed like, at least episode number wise, this Akihabara arc is shorter than the Shinjuku arc, but that might just also be like a pacing thing of like they just tore through it faster. So, but like I said, that's at least 2 more volumes they could do into another season. But like I said, for now, I haven't seen anything saying that there's going to be another season currently. So I'll keep an eye out, because I'd love to get more of this series, because obviously there's still plenty more story to tell. It might just sadly be one of those situations of the only way you're going to get this story is if you have to read the light novels yourself. And I think only 3 of them have been translated into English, I believe. I think only 1 through 3. I think 4 and 5. I think 3 only just got like an English release like maybe back in October or something like that. It's only came out like this year, so there still hasn't been a English release for 4 and 5 yet either. So, but yeah, I'm kind of going on a tangent there. But like I said, there's more story to tell. Whether we'll get that in the form of an anime, fingers crossed. But for now, like I said, we'll label it as a finale because this might be it for the anime. But I hope not. I hope we get to continue this story because I love the setting and I love just like the world building and I love these characters, and especially as Team Demon Lord has expanded. And obviously we've gotten introduced to what might be our main antagonist in this church group, and now they know one of their fellow dark peers is out there, like about recruiting people and seeing where things kind of go going forward. I love to see also, like, you know, because it's based on different cities, so like what the city from volumes 3, 4, and 5 are, and what their whole gimmicks and situations are, so stuff like that. But for now, we'll kind of end things here. You know, if there is sadly no more anime, I'd like to thank everyone who involved with bringing this series to, you know, to life with the animation. Thank you everyone involved with making that happen. Like I said, fingers crossed, hoping for more. But if this is all we get, I want to thank everyone involved for making what we got happen. But yeah, that's enough rambling on my part. That's really all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.